And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at an abstract game, and that abstract game is from Stronghold Games called Confusion, Espionage and Deception in the Cold War. Now, this is a two-player game in which each player controls a set of spies, trying to advance their spies to collect a briefcase and bring it to their opponent's front row. Or back row, I guess, more appropriately. But when they do so, they don't know the movement of their pieces before they start. So they don't know how each of their pieces moves, and will have to kind of figure this out throughout the game by what their opponent allows them to do when they try and move a piece. So real quick, we'll see how this works and how the game plays, what comes inside of the box, and then we'll come back here and we'll get my final opinions on Confusion. So here you can see the components for Confusion and Espionage in the Cold War. Now this is a two-player abstract game in which each player has 13 pieces on the board. It's pretty much always this arrangement. It could be that one of the pieces actually isn't here, and you have a slightly different setup, but for the most part, the arrangement is as you see it here. Now, the interesting part about this game is, first off, you're trying to get this briefcase. Each player is trying to get a briefcase and turn it to the opponent's side all the way to their front row. So you're trying to get one of your spies to this spot on the opposing row with this briefcase. However, the interesting part is that while you have all of these pieces, and each piece has its own little icon on the back that's facing you, you do not know the movement of your pieces, because the movement of your pieces, as you can see here, is facing your opponent. So they know everything about how your pieces move, you know nothing about how they move. Now each piece has a different movement. Although they all have icons on the back, the movement changes from game to game because they have this insertable piece that you distribute randomly amongst all of the pieces, and that will tell you how the pieces move. This one, for example, can move forward or diagonally forward one space, to the left or right one space, or backwards one space. Whereas V here can move forward diagonally one space, or to the side one space, or backwards diagonally one space. And some of them will move 2, some of them will move 4. The interesting part here is if you take a look at L for the white player, we'll see that it has this movement pattern, but L for the red player moves forward up to 4. So the arrangement will be different from game to game, and that's very important to the gameplay. In addition to that, each player has a book of which they're going to keep track of the movement that they know about their pieces and what their opponents know about their own pieces. So you'll see here for each piece labeled A through X, you can go ahead and mark off what you learn about the pieces as you go to keep track of it. This will be important for keeping track of how your pieces move. Now, why this is important is on your turn, you're going to choose one of your pieces to try and move. You may know something about it, you may know nothing about it. So maybe I choose this piece right here, and I say, I want to move this piece forward 2 spaces. Now my opponent would look at the piece and see if that's possible. Well, we can clearly see that forward 2 spaces is not an option on here. It could move diagonally in any direction 1 space, or to the side 1 space, and he'd say no. So no, I can't move that piece that direction. That's my turn. I'm pretty much done with my turn at that point. And my opponent would do the same thing. Meanwhile, I'm going to note down what I know about that piece. I know it can't go forward 2 spaces, so I can cross off in my book any piece that goes forward 2 spaces. The next person is going to, of course, choose one of their pieces, and maybe say, I want to move this piece forward 2 spaces. And the opponent will say, well, yes, because X here can move forward up to 2 spaces. Works out well for that person. They now know that X can move forward 2 spaces. Of course, both players want to keep track of that, so they'll mark it down in their books. Now the objective here is to get one of your pieces to this top secret briefcase, and if you get there, you can simply pick it up. Picking it up just means that you put your piece on top of it, and you now have that briefcase. Then the goal after that is to get this piece all the way to the other side of the board, to your opponent's first row. And if you do so, you win the game by collecting the briefcase. However, if your opponent ever manages to land directly on top of you by moving their pieces around, once they've figured out what they do, they're going to capture your piece and, of course, take the briefcase. You may also move backwards with your briefcase, or instead of moving your piece, you may actually transfer the briefcase using your piece's movement. So if I didn't want to move forward 2 with this piece, I could instead send it forward 2 on its own, but of course that could pass it to somebody else. I could send it to the side 2, and that could pass it to somebody else. And it could be my opponent that I'm passing it to if my opponent's piece is standing here. So you want to be careful about passing pieces as you go. In addition, you'll see that pieces are able to be crowned or kinged, and if they get all the way to the opponent's row without the briefcase, because if they got there with the briefcase they'd win the game, you can actually remove them from their seatings. Let's not use that one, but you can remove them from their seatings and flip them over. And you'll see here that these pieces, when you flip them over, all have the same movement, but it's 2 in any direction. So getting them all the way to your opponent's edge is going to make them a lot better. However, there are only certain pieces that can be promoted, and that was not one of them. So you'll see that there are 4 pieces on the table that can be promoted. For example, X here, which has this crown on it, can be promoted. So if you get one of those pieces all the way across, you promote it appropriately. And of course, it wouldn't have the briefcase. There's also one special piece, and if I can find it here, it's this one right here. This is basically a double agent. And when you try and move that piece, your opponent may tell you yes or no to basically any instruction you give. So you can say, can this piece move forward 4? And your opponent could say, yes, it can. And that would, of course, make them think that they're dealing with this piece right here, which can move forward 4 and is the only piece that can move forward 4. And they would mark appropriately in their book that this piece moves forward 4. But the next time they go to move it forward 4, you could say, no, it can't move forward 4. Of course, this would be a direct giveaway that this piece is not indeed this piece. It is actually the double agent. So you're going to want to be careful about giving that kind of information out. Maybe they say it can move forward 1, and you say, sure, it can move forward 1. And they've got it narrowed down. They think it can move sideways, but you say, nope, it can't move sideways. Well, okay, that's a little bit more information they've learned, but you're going to want to go as long as possible letting them think they know what this piece is without actually giving away that it's the double agent until it's a crucial point. Maybe they're trying to move up with the briefcase, and you decide finally no. Then, on your turn, you can decide to eliminate one of your pieces. If you know it's the double agent or think it's the double agent, you simply remove it from the board without saying anything and without looking at it, hoping that you've indeed removed your double agent. So there's an aspect of trying to figure out which piece is the appropriate one. Anyhow, using all of these, you're going to try and grab this briefcase and get it to your opponent's edge by promoting your pieces, getting the better moving pieces, trying to figure out what each one of your individual pieces does, and hopefully outwitting your opponent, and the first player to get this briefcase all the way to the other side will be the winner. Now, in addition to that, they've included some variants. One, of course, removes your double agent piece so that there's honor among spies and nobody knows nobody has one of these double agents, so you don't have to worry about trying to figure that out. I don't think that's a great addition. I kind of like the double agent, so I would leave that in. In addition, they have some special ability tokens that you can use. For example, one of them allows you to move twice on your turn, but you have to move somebody that's on your side of the board twice, or each person from your side of the board twice. 2 people that are on your side of the board twice. This one here allows you to reveal the identity of one of your spies. So you always get to, or you can use this to flip one around and see what it is. But then you can't move that one on your turn. And this one here allows you to swap the position of 2 of your spies that are on your side of the board. Hopefully you know something about them and you're swapping them in order to try and get a better shot at the briefcase. Anyhow, you can put these into the game to make a more interesting experience, have some special abilities to use at the right time, and try and get the briefcase to your opponent's side of the board. Well, there you have it. That is Confusion from Stronghold Games. A pretty good abstract game. Not a great abstract game, even though I thought it was going to be one when I sat down to it. I read the rules and I was like, ooh, this sounds really cool. I try and move a piece, but I don't know what the movement is, and maybe I can move it and maybe I can't. And from that, I learn what the piece is eventually. And that just sounds awesome. It sounds like when you combine that with gameplay where you're trying to move your piece and grab something and get to the opposite side, that it's going to be great. And it's not great, but it's good. It's even very good. Not one of my favorite abstracts, but one that offers something unique, and that's really kind of cool. The gameplay often, for some reason, for me, ends faster than I think it should, or I'm always controlling that double agent, and I always think that I'm going to do really well, and then I don't. But that's part of the game, and I really do enjoy the fact that that double agent's there, that there's ways to remove it, but if you're wrong in trying to remove it, you've actually removed one of your useful pieces. So with all of that said, I would definitely recommend checking out Confusion. I do think it's a good game, and one that a lot of people are really going to enjoy the concept of. I like it myself. Yeah, I don't actually own this copy. It was sent to me for review by the Board Game Exchange, where you can try games before you buy them. But if I did own it, I think I'd keep it, especially for the novelty of having that hidden aspect to it and pull it out with new people and try that game, show them the cool mechanic, and hopefully get some fun out of it. So if that sounds cool to you, check out Confusion by Stronghold Games.
To try this game and over 800 others before you buy them, visit BoardGameExchange.com.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.